250 miles above Earth, a fragile outpost of humanity, orbits our planet at 17,500 miles per hour. The International Space Station, a marvel of engineering and international cooperation, represents our species' most ambitious permanent presence beyond our atmosphere. This 420-ton structure, roughly the size of a football field, sustains human life in an environment that offers no forgiveness for error. In the vacuum of space, where temperatures swing between 250 degrees Fahrenheit in sunlight to minus 250 degrees in shadow, astronauts live and work, separated from instant death by mere inches of specialized materials. There is no air to breathe, no water to drink, and no possibility of immediate rescue. Every system, every procedure, every action must work perfectly, because in space, small problems cascade into catastrophes with frightening speed. Yet despite these inherent dangers, for over 2 decades, brave men and women have called this orbiting laboratory home. They've conducted groundbreaking research, maintained complex systems, and performed daring spacewalks to keep this outpost functioning. But among all missions to the ISS, one stands out as particularly harrowing, a sequence of events that tested human courage, ingenuity, and the thin line between life and death like never before. This is the story of Expedition 36, and how a routine spacewalk transformed into one of the most dangerous moments in space exploration history, when Italian astronaut Luca Parmitano faced the terrifying prospect of drowning in space. If you're fascinated by the dangers astronauts face in space, hit that like button right now and subscribe to join us for more incredible space stories. Drop a comment below telling us if you'd have the courage to venture outside the ISS, knowing the risks. The International Space Station represents humanity's longest continuous presence in space. Since November 2000, this orbiting laboratory has never been without human occupants, hosting over 250 people from 20 countries. Constructed through unprecedented international cooperation, the ISS combines modules built by the United States, Russia, Japan, and the European Space Agency. Its assembly required more than 40 space shuttle missions and dozens of launches on Russian rockets, a testament to what nations can achieve when working toward a common goal. Life aboard the station follows a carefully orchestrated routine. The 6-person crew typically works 8.5 hours per day on science experiments, station maintenance, and exercise to counter the muscle and bone loss that occurs in microgravity. Every system aboard the ISS has redundancies, backup plans for backup plans, because in space failure is not an option. The station's life support systems continuously recycle air and water. Carbon dioxide scrubbers remove exhaled breath. Water purification systems turn urine into drinking water. Solar arrays spanning 240 feet generate electricity to power everything from science experiments to the astronauts' laptops. But perhaps the most dangerous activity astronauts regularly perform is the spacewalk, or extravehicular activity. During these carefully choreographed excursions, astronauts don 300-pound spacesuits that must function as self-contained spacecraft, providing oxygen, removing carbon dioxide, maintaining pressure, and regulating temperature. Before Expedition 36, the ISS had already weathered several close calls. In 2007, a computer failure temporarily disabled attitude control. In 2010, an ammonia pump module failed, requiring emergency repairs. And in May 2013, just before our story begins, astronauts Chris Cassidy and Tom Marshburn performed an emergency spacewalk to fix an ammonia coolant leak that threatened the station's power systems. But these incidents would pale in comparison to what was about to unfold during the summer of 2013, when Expedition 36 would face one of the most terrifying emergencies in spaceflight history. Expedition 36 officially began on May 14, 2013, when countdown to the International Space Station transferred to Russian cosmonaut Pavel Vinogradov. At 59, Vinogradov was already making history as the oldest Russian ever to fly in space, bringing decades of experience from previous missions to Mir and the ISS. Joining him were flight engineers Alexander Misurkin, a former Russian Air Force fighter pilot on his first spaceflight, and American astronaut Chris Cassidy, a decorated Navy SEAL with one previous shuttle mission under his belt. This core crew had arrived at the station in March, aboard Soyuz TMA-08M, making history with the first fast rendezvous that reduced the typical 2-day journey to just 6 hours. On May 28, the crew expanded to 6, with the arrival of Russian cosmonaut Fyodor Yurchikhin, American astronaut Karen Neiberg, and Italian astronaut Luca Parmitano. For Parmitano, a former test pilot and major in the Italian Air Force, this marked his first spaceflight, though he would soon earn a place in space history for reasons no one could have anticipated. The mission objectives for Expedition 36 were ambitious. The crew would conduct dozens of scientific experiments, from studying how fire behaves in microgravity to researching the effects of spaceflight on the human body. They would receive and unload cargo from visiting vehicles, including a European ATV supply ship and a Japanese HTV transfer vehicle. But a significant portion of their mission would involve spacewalks, EVAs designed to upgrade the station's systems and prepare for future expansions. The Russian cosmonauts would conduct EVAs to prepare for the arrival of Russia's new Nauka laboratory module. Meanwhile, Cassidy and Parmitano would perform 2 American EVAs to handle maintenance tasks and install new equipment. As the crew settled into their routine aboard the station, none could have predicted that one of these carefully planned spacewalks would soon turn into a life-threatening emergency that would test their training, teamwork, and courage to the absolute limit. The first indication that Expedition 36 would be anything but routine came shortly after the crew's arrival, when visual observations confirmed an ammonia leak from the station's cooling system. Within just 48 hours, NASA assembled an emergency spacewalk plan, and on May 11, 2013, Chris Cassidy and Tom Marshburn, still part of Expedition 35 at that time, ventured outside to replace a pump control box suspected of causing the leak. This urgent, unplanned EVA highlighted the unpredictable nature of spaceflight and the crew's ability to respond quickly to emerging threats. Though successful, it served as a harbinger of the challenges that lay ahead for Expedition. As June 2013 arrived, the mission proceeded according to plan. On June 24, cosmonauts Fyodor Yurchikhin and Alexander Misurkin conducted a successful 6-hour, 34-minute spacewalk, installing clamps and cables to prepare for the future arrival of the Russian Nauka module. 2 weeks later, on July 9, history was made when Luca Parmitano became the first Italian astronaut to perform a spacewalk. Alongside Chris Cassidy, Parmitano spent 6 hours and 7 minutes working outside the station, replacing a failed communications component, retrieving science experiments, and installing radiator grapple bars. Designated EVA-22, this spacewalk proceeded flawlessly. The 2 astronauts worked efficiently, completing all assigned tasks while marveling at the spectacular views of Earth passing beneath them. Upon returning to the airlock, both men were tired but exhilarated by the experience. During the post-EVA inspection of their spacesuits, technicians noted a small amount of water in Parmitano's helmet, about 20 to 40 milliliters. While unusual, this was attributed to a leaky drink bag in his suit and not considered a significant concern. The water volume was small, and drink bag leaks had occurred on previous missions without incident. This seemingly minor anomaly was documented, but with no clear indication of a serious problem. Preparations continued for the next spacewalk. Scheduled just 1 week later on July, neither the crew nor mission control could have known that this small water leak was the first warning sign of a potentially deadly malfunction that would soon put Parmitano's life in imminent danger. As EVA-23 approached, the mood aboard the station was positive. The crew had settled into a productive routine. Science experiments were yielding valuable data, and the previous spacewalk had accomplished all its objectives. There was no reason to expect that the upcoming EVA would be anything but another successful day of work outside the station. But in space, where the line between routine and disaster is razor thin, assumptions can prove deadly. And as Cassidy and Parmitano prepared to exit the airlock on July 16, 2013, they were about to face one of the most harrowing emergencies in the history of human spaceflight. July 16, 2013, 7:57 a.m. Eastern Time. Expedition 36 astronauts Chris Cassidy and Luca Parmitano began what was supposed to be a routine 6.5-hour spacewalk outside the International Space Station. Their objectives included routing cables for the future Russian Nauka module, retrieving experiments, and installing a cover on a docking port. As they exited the Quest airlock, both men were in good spirits. For Cassidy, this was his 6th spacewalk. For Parmitano, only his 2nd. Having made history just a week earlier as Italy's first spacewalker, the two men separated to work on different tasks, with Cassidy moving to the Z1 truss to reconfigure power cables, while Parmitano began laying data cables beneath the Unity node. 44 minutes into the EVA, the first sign of trouble appeared. "I feel a lot of water on the back of my head," Parmitano reported calmly to Mission Control. Initially, both the astronauts and ground controllers suspected a leaking drink bag, a minor inconvenience, but not a serious concern. Cassidy, drawing on his Navy SEAL training and previous spacewalk experience, moved to inspect his colleague's helmet. What he saw was troubling. Water was pooling at the back of Parmitano's head, more than could be explained by a simple drink bag leak. "His head is saturated. It's in his eyes as well," Cassidy reported to Houston. In the vacuum of space, this situation was rapidly becoming life-threatening. With no gravity to pull it down, the water began spreading around Parmitano's face inside his helmet. It covered his eyes, entered his nose, and began approaching his mouth. Unable to wipe it away inside the confines of his helmet, Parmitano could only endure as the water continued to accumulate. At Mission Control in Houston, Flight Director David Korth and his team quickly assessed the deteriorating situation. The water wasn't just an inconvenience, it posed multiple deadly threats. It could drown Parmitano if it covered his nose and mouth. It could short-circuit his suit's electrical systems. And as it began to interfere with his communications, it threatened to cut him off from vital guidance from Mission Control. At 9:06 a.m. Eastern Time, just 92 minutes into what was planned as a 6.5-hour spacewalk, Korth made the call: "We're terminating the EVA." The order was clear. Parmitano was to return to the airlock immediately, with Cassidy following to assist. But what should have been a straightforward retreat became a harrowing journey as Parmitano's situation worsened by the second. With water now covering his eyes, Parmitano was essentially blind. The liquid had seeped into his ears, disorienting him and making it difficult to hear instructions. His microphone was becoming intermittent as water interfered with the electronics, and most alarmingly, water was beginning to enter his nose and mouth, creating the very real possibility that an Italian astronaut might drown in space, 250 miles above Earth. Drawing on his training and remarkable composure, Parmitano navigated back to the airlock largely by memory and feel, using the tethers that connected him to the station as guides. Cassidy, communicating the situation to Mission Control, followed closely to assist if needed. "He looks miserable, but he's okay," Cassidy reported as they reached the airlock. At 9:26 a.m., the airlock hatch was closed and repressurization began, the fastest end to a spacewalk in ISS history. Inside the station, fellow crew members Karen Nyberg and Fyodor Yurchikhin stood ready to assist. When the inner hatch finally opened at 9:38 a.m., they found Parmitano's helmet filled with water. Approximately 1.5 liters had leaked into his suit, covering his eyes, nose, and ears, with water bubbles floating around his face. As they removed his helmet, water droplets scattered in the microgravity environment, revealing just how close the call had been. Luca Parmitano had just survived one of the most dangerous emergencies in spacewalk history, a near drowning in the vacuum of space. In the immediate aftermath of the aborted spacewalk, the Expedition 36 crew's training kicked into high gear. As Parmitano's helmet was removed, Karen Nyberg quickly provided towels to dry his face. The Italian astronaut, despite his ordeal, remained remarkably composed, a testament to the psychological resilience required of those selected for spaceflight. "He was definitely having a hard time," Chris Cassidy later recalled. "He had water in his eyes and was having trouble seeing. When we took the helmet off, about 2 cups of water came out." The crew's first priority was ensuring Parmitano's health. Though physically unharmed, the psychological impact of such a close call could not be underestimated. Meanwhile, Mission Control in Houston began an immediate investigation into what had gone wrong with Parmitano's spacesuit, designated EMU, extravehicular mobility unit. The investigation quickly ruled out the drinking bag as the source of the leak. Instead, attention focused on the suit's cooling system, specifically the water separator loop that circulates water through the suit to maintain temperature. Engineers suspected that this system had malfunctioned, allowing cooling water to leak into Parmitano's helmet. As the investigation continued, all U.S. spacewalks were temporarily suspended, a significant setback for station maintenance. The Russian spacewalks, which used entirely different Orlan spacesuits, continued as planned, with Fyodor Yurchikhin and Alexander Misurkin conducting EVAs on August 6. For the crew, the incident highlighted the razor-thin margin between routine operations and disaster in space. In the vacuum outside the station, Parmitano had faced multiple simultaneous threats: drowning from water covering his airway, electrocution from water reaching suit electronics, and disorientation that could have left him unable to return to safety. The water covers your eyes, your nose. It's a really awful sensation. Parmitano later described, "I knew that if the water continued to leak, it would soon cover my mouth and nose. The only place where air could enter the helmet was the helmet purge valve, so I would be breathing through this valve, with water covering my face." The fact that Parmitano had maintained his composure during this life-threatening emergency spoke volumes about his training and character. As a former test pilot, he had been selected for his ability to function under extreme pressure, a quality that likely saved his life during those critical minutes. Back on Earth, NASA assembled an investigation board, led by ISS Chief Engineer Chris Hansen. Their 5-month investigation would eventually trace the problem to contamination in the suit's fan pump separator, which had clogged water separator holes and allowed water to back up into the helmet. More troublingly, they would identify organizational factors that had allowed warning signs from the previous spacewalk to go unaddressed. For the remainder of Expedition 36, the crew continued their scientific work while adapting to the new reality that U.S. spacewalks were on hold. The incident had demonstrated both the inherent dangers of space operations and the effectiveness of the crew's emergency response training. As Parmitano reflected weeks later, space is a harsh, unforgiving environment. The equipment we use to keep ourselves alive is complex and not immune to failure. That's why we train extensively for emergencies. And that's why we have procedures and people on the ground to help us when things go wrong. The quick thinking that saved Luca Parmitano's life is just one example of astronaut heroism. If you're enjoying this deep dive, smash that like button for more space stories that showcase human ingenuity in the face of disaster. The near drowning of an astronaut during EVA 23 sent shockwaves through the space community. What began as a routine spacewalk had transformed into one of the most serious close calls in ISS history, prompting a comprehensive re-evaluation of spacewalk safety protocols. NASA's Mishap Investigation Board released its findings in February 2014, identifying the root cause as contamination that clogged the fan pump separator in Parmitano's spacesuit. This component, designed to separate gas and water in the suit's cooling system, had failed due to silica contamination, allowing water to back up and flow into the helmet. More concerning were the organizational factors identified. The investigation revealed that similar water leakage had occurred during Parmitano's previous spacewalk EVA 22, but had been misdiagnosed as a leaking drink bag. This critical warning sign was not properly investigated before approving the next EVA, a communication breakdown that nearly cost an astronaut his life. "We're dealing with a very complex system," explained Chris Hansen, who led the investigation. "There were opportunities to discover this problem before EVA 23, but those opportunities were missed because we had become comfortable with the risks we were taking." The incident led to significant changes in spacewalk procedures. NASA developed new absorbent pads to be placed at the back of astronauts' helmets, nicknamed snorkels, that could absorb water and provide an emergency breathing pathway if a similar leak occurred. Astronauts also began carrying small pumps that could extract water from a helmet in an emergency. Communication protocols between ground controllers and spacewalking astronauts were enhanced to ensure that anomalies, no matter how minor they might seem, received proper attention. And the inspection and maintenance procedures for the aging EMU spacesuits, some of which had been in service since the Space Shuttle era, were completely overhauled. For Luca Parmitano, the experience provided a unique perspective on risk and resilience in space. I learned that even in the direst situations, staying calm and focused is your best chance for survival," he later reflected. Space exploration will always involve risk, but we must never allow familiarity to breed complacency. The incident also highlighted the aging infrastructure of the ISS itself. By 2013, the station had been continuously occupied for nearly 13 years, with some components operating well beyond their designed lifespans. The near disaster served as a stark reminder that maintaining this complex outpost required constant vigilance and a willingness to question assumptions about equipment reliability. Despite the setback, the scientific work of Expedition 36 continued. The crew completed dozens of experiments in fields ranging from human physiology to material science. And when Vinogradov, Masurkin, and Cassidy returned to Earth on September 11, 2013, they brought with them not only valuable scientific data, but also hard-won lessons about survival in space. For NASA and its international partners, the incident reinforced a fundamental truth about human spaceflight. In the harsh environment of space, there is no such thing as a routine operation. Every procedure, every piece of equipment, and every decision must be approached with the understanding that lives hang in the balance. The near tragedy of EVA-23 has earned its place among the most significant close calls in spaceflight history. Like the fire aboard Apollo 1, the oxygen tank explosion on Apollo 13, or the hole in Columbia's wing, it serves as both a cautionary tale and a testament to human ingenuity and courage in the face of mortal danger. "We often learn more from our failures than our successes," observed former astronaut and NASA Administrator Charles Bolden. The water intrusion incident taught us that even after decades of spacewalks, we cannot take safety for granted. Each EVA presents unique challenges and risks. For Luca Parmitano, the incident did not end his spaceflight career. In a remarkable demonstration of courage, he returned to the ISS in 2019 as part of Expedition 61, even performing additional spacewalks, a testament to his trust in the improved safety systems and his own resilience. Going back outside after what happened was not easy, Parmitano admitted. But exploration requires us to face our fears. The work we do on the ISS is too important to be halted by fear. The legacy of Expedition 36 extends beyond the dramatic spacewalk incident. The mission demonstrated the international cooperation that makes the ISS possible, with Americans, Russians, and Europeans working together seamlessly during the emergency. It showcased the psychological fortitude required of astronauts, who must remain calm and methodical even when their lives are in immediate danger. Perhaps most importantly, it reinforced the principle that has guided human spaceflight since its inception: learn from close calls, implement improvements, and continue pushing the boundaries of exploration with renewed respect for the risks involved. As NASA and its partners look toward future missions to the Moon and Mars, the lessons of EVA-23 remain relevant. Future spacesuits being developed for the Artemis lunar program incorporate numerous design improvements inspired by Parmitano's experience, and training protocols for long-duration missions beyond Earth orbit now place even greater emphasis on emergency response and independent problem solving. Space exploration is never routine, reflected NASA Flight Director David Korth, whose decisive action to terminate the spacewalk likely saved Parmitano's life. The moment we begin to think it is, we put lives at risk. The water intrusion incident reminded us all that in space, the line between success and disaster is razor thin. The story of Expedition 36 and the near drowning in space has become required study for astronaut candidates and flight controllers alike, a powerful reminder that in the most hostile environment humans have ever entered, vigilance, teamwork, and the courage to make difficult decisions can make the difference between life and death. We're about to explore how this near disaster changed spaceflight forever. Comment below with other space incidents you'd like us to cover in future episodes. 250 miles above Earth, the International Space Station continues its silent orbit, a testament to human ingenuity and our unyielding desire to explore beyond our planetary boundaries. Each day, the astronauts aboard this outpost rise to face challenges that most of us can scarcely imagine, conducting research that expands our understanding of science while testing the limits of human endurance. The story of Expedition 36 and Luca Parmitano's near drowning reminds us that this endeavor comes at a price. Space exploration has never been safe, and despite our technological advances, it likely never will be. The vacuum of space, the extreme temperatures, the radiation, and the complexity of the equipment required to keep humans alive in this environment ensure that risk will always be an astronaut's companion. Yet it is precisely this risk, and the courage of those willing to face it, that makes space exploration one of humanity's noblest pursuits. When we watch astronauts venture outside the airlock, we are witnessing individuals who have chosen to place discovery and advancement above personal safety. They do so not because it is easy, but because they understand that pushing boundaries rarely is. As we look toward a future that may include permanent settlements on the Moon and human missions to Mars, the lessons of Expedition 36 take on renewed importance. The systems that will keep future explorers alive will be more complex, the distances greater, the margins for error smaller. But the fundamental qualities required, technical excellence, psychological resilience, and unwavering teamwork, remain the same. Perhaps the most powerful legacy of Luca Parmitano's near drowning in space is the reminder it provides of our fragility in the cosmos. In the vacuum of space, separated from instant death by mere inches of specialized materials, humans remain vulnerable despite our technological achievements. This vulnerability does not diminish our accomplishments. Rather, it highlights the extraordinary courage required to venture beyond our atmosphere. As Parmitano himself reflected, space teaches you humility. It shows you how small we are, yet how remarkable it is that we can still reach for the stars, despite our limitations. In that spirit, the International Space Station continues its journey around our planet, a bright light moving across the night sky, carrying with it the hopes, dreams, and indomitable courage of humanity. And with each orbit, it carries too the lessons of Expedition 36, lessons written not in manuals, but in the lived experience of those who faced death in the void and returned to tell the tale. If this story of survival against the odds impressed you, prove it by hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel. We post new space documentaries every week, and your support helps us continue bringing these incredible stories to life.